Afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Athen, and I'm on the board for the Society for Collegiate Travel and Expense Management. And my day job, I always say, I work at the University of Washington. I wanted to welcome you all and to introduce you to our sponsors for this session today, Oversight. And now I will turn it over to Nathaniel.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Teresa. So, we're going to be looking at the topic today of technology trends that connect us. And my name, as Teresa said, is Nathaniel LaRue. I'm with Oversight, the Chief Solutions Ambassador, which simply means that I get to talk about what Oversight is and does and how some of our clients are finding solutions and value. And I have the privilege of being here with two amazing co-hosts, uh, both Shelley Shearer, and I'll have them introduce themselves. Shelley Shearer from George Washington University and Alex Sims from Oregon State University. So, Shelley, would you like to just say hello to all those out there today listening?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shelley Shearer. I'm the Director of Payables at George Washington University. Um, we've been using Oversight for a little about a year and a half now, um, but I've been with GW for about 15 years, and I'm over the Payables Department, the P card, and supplier maintenance.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Shelley. And how about you, Alex?
Yeah, hey all. My name is Alex Sims. I'm the Director of Vendor Payment Strategies at Oregon State University, which is sort of a fancy way of saying accounts payable and travel. It's my day job, much like Shelley. I've been at OSU for 15 years, and we've been working with Oversight for 4 years. So excited to be here today.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for introducing yourselves. Just before we get into the questions, and we're going to have a really great time talking about both Shelley and Alex and their journey from where they were before up to then using AI in their roles and with their teams doing the review of their travel and expense. Before we get there, just wanted to set the table, talk about trends that are going on in the world around us. First off, it used to be the question of, oh, hey, what is this new AI stuff, and should we use it? And really, what's been happening and the answers that we're seeing is, look, AI isn't a question of if, maybe a question of when you'll be starting to use it. And many of you are probably using it in your daily life, but certainly in the audit space. Big audit firms, KPMG and PwC, all of the big four, they're using AI in all of their work for doing financial audits. And really, in the previous world, before AI and before, intelligent tools, there's a lot of there's controls that are in place, but things are still getting passed, right? There's a lot of manual processes. So non-compliant spend goes undetected, and there's just a lot of hard to see or invisible cash leakage, right? Whether it's things as simple as duplicates or things that shouldn't be reimbursed. So that's where a lot of organizations are at. But when it comes to bringing AI into the picture, first off, it's monitoring 100% of all of the data instead of doing a sample or just looking at certain things. So it's looking at everything. But that doesn't mean that your team has to look at everything, right? You don't have time for that. You don't have enough resources, but AI is going to look through everything for you and then just highlight those items that are risky that you need to take a look at, which reduces greatly the workload. So it's a much higher efficiency in the process while still giving you visibility to be able to enhance the controls, right? So your controls are stronger, now looking at 100% instead of a sample. Um, but it's less, it's more efficient, and it gives focus, right? Quicker identification of risk. Things are scored. You're able to quickly get to it. So a lot of value. And whether the limitations of the audits in the manual way and the traditional way of using audit rules or various things, they'll get you there. They start, but they're quite limited. They don't look at patterns, they don't look at trends, they're not looking in at the receipts. Random samples, you're just looking at a portion. Manual auditing and reporting is a lot of work. So all of these just don't give a comprehensive solution. So that's where using an AI type solution like Oversight will give you full visibility, first automating all of the data acquisition, plugging into your travel and expense system, card system, and even your payables system. Pull that data in, do the analysis of 100% of the transactions, analyze and identify where there's risk, and then present it back to you in a case management tool that we call the workbench that allows you to resolve and deal with all of those issues. So ultimately, more efficient, full visibility is where it's at. So with that being said, I know you don't want to hear me talking. It's like, Nathaniel, stop talking. That was way too much. uh, let's jump in now and really hear from some of your peers, right? These both Alex and Shelley have been there, done that. They've been in the trenches. You can see here a little bit about their programs. And so, Shelley, why don't we start with you? And can you just walk us through at a starting point of what your program looks like? We've got some of the details up here on the screen, but just kind of walk us through what George Washington University, what your program looks like. You're on mute if you're talking.
So many buttons.
I
Okay,
know.
so you want to know my process now or prior to we started with Oversight?
Yeah, so let's just talk a bit about your program. We've got the summary here.
Okay.
Um,
So currently what we do is we look at everything in uh, so there's a pre and a post review of reports, and we have ours set to do everything upon submission. So anytime an employee submits a report, it automatically goes into Oversight and gets totally pushed against everything that we worked with Oversight to factor in. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but and then anything that flags as a high risk then goes to mandatory review with someone from my team. And that way we can catch things before they're paid out, which was a really big reason why we wanted to go with Oversight, was to catch things before they get paid. We also do some post review of things, but our big thing is catching them before they even go through the whole approval process. So if it comes to us, we can then either send it forward or reject it back. If we send it forward, it then goes through the managers, and then it just processes through smoothly.
okay.
Before that, I just want to say that
Yeah, go ahead.
we we didn't look at 100% of our expense reports, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have a process like this. With all the reports that we get, we only have one full-time employee that does expense reporting. So we had it set for we would get any of the reports that were flagged by audit rules in our T&E system, which were fairly basic rules. They captured some high-level things like the exact same airline ticket or something like those lines. But outside of those mandatory audit rules, we only ever did a 10% random review of reports. And that enables us to catch some things. If something came up with a new where we might need to dig deeper or to maybe improve our training somewhere, but it really was not a very encompassing way to make sure we were compliant with our policies.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how about you, Alex?
Yeah, I appreciate that rundown, Shelley. We're very similar in our setup and how we manage oversight. We have pre and post monitoring activities. Every expense report submitted in Concur does flow through oversight review. Anything that's triggered for an exception, that our team does review those exceptions for high risk transactions very similarly. I think one of the things, like, you can't really talk about where we're currently are without kind of getting into, like Shelley was talking about, where we came from, I think is really important to the conversation. At OSU, we were a little bit different in that our prior to 2021, more or less, we had a bit of a hybrid, highly manual system, paper expense reports, travel reimbursements, and we had quite a number of folks, over 30 individuals at the university that were tasked with hand data entering those reports and reviewing those reports. We actually had 100% review on every single line item of every single receipt. We spent a pretty inordinate amount of time in staff time reviewing those transactions. And we saw everything. We actually were living in the weeds pretty deep. So any variation in our policy, even if, a tip was over 1% more than our allowed amount, we were really spending a lot of time chasing down policy exceptions, and we were almost over auditing just to an extent. And so it was very manual. We had a real desire to reallocate resources to other business functions at the university. And so that's what led us to sort of overhauling our program and trying to take advantage of the tools out there, like Nathaniel was talking about, being a little bit more efficient in our review. So that sort of led us to oversight and letting the tool really do the work on identifying the higher risk transactions that we want to spend our time looking at, not the $24, $25 receipts that, might be slightly over a limit, things like that. So we came from a pretty manual process that involved 30 plus people, to more of a refined process. We have our travel expense team has 9 individuals on it today. So we were able to move some resources around to other business functions where we were having some pressure to address. So we had a pretty big shift in our program.
Oh, yeah. So that kind of brings me to a secondary question, and you started talking about it. You had the old process that one was very manual, 30 people, and so you kind of led it into what the challenges were, right? It was manual, lot probably as you termed it, maybe even over auditing to some degree. So you went from a team of 30 down to a team of 9, reallocated those resources to other places. So was the primary challenge that you were dealing with, was it do you feel like you were catching everything, but it was too much labor, so it was mostly efficiency? Would you say that was the main thing?
Yeah, definitely for us, I feel like we were catching everything because we were spending a great deal of time auditing
Yeah,
every line of every report, but we
yeah,
were we weren't really like efficient in our process per se, in that we were really diving into immaterial things that really didn't warrant the level of effort we were putting towards it. So we had this kind of imbalance in spending a substantial amount of time on things that didn't really move the needle for the university at a
right.
high level for when we talk about compliance. So we were catching everything, but sometimes everything comes at a pretty big cost from an
Yeah.
administrative cost perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so Shelley, how about you? What were some of the reasons that you went from the old process to the new process, right? What were some of the challenges you were facing, or things that drove you to adopt an AI type solution?
Well, we're always looking for new initiatives to use. It's a big thing for GW, but one of our biggest things was trying to find all those things that we weren't already. I mean, we weren't doing 100% review, so we knew we were
Yeah,
missing a lot of areas. Duplicates was a big thing for us. We had a process in place, but it was a very tedious process of pulling basically data and then running them through macros and Excels, and it took hours and hours every month for what ended up being very minimal fines, thankfully. But anytime you find something, it causes more issues. Like what else could I be missing? And it was just a lot of manual hours that we just did not have to spend. So we really wanted something like this to find all that for us and find the things that we didn't even know we were missing at that point.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So as you began your process then of looking, Shelley, what led you to oversight, ultimately? What were some of the things you looked at? How did you come to the choice?
We evaluated a variety of places, but we ended up with this because you offered us the ability to sales tax was big for us. We're exempt from sales tax, and there was a way
Hmm.
for us to factor that in so that things that flagged with sales tax over a certain amount would be caught. And that's the first time we were ever able to capture that kind of data. And we found a huge downswing in people charging sales tax now and actually using
Oh,
their P cards appropriately with their exemption forms that they weren't before because no one knew it was happening.
yeah.
Um, so it's a lot of things like that that enabled us to do that one. And the other big thing for us is we allow the purchase of gift cards, but if you buy them, we have a certain form that must be required to be attached, and we were able to work with oversight to put like if it's to this account, this exact form needs to be attached or reject it. That was one of those audit rules where we were having to review 100%, and now we don't need to look at them at all. So it saved us a lot of time.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that piques my interest, Shelley. I might have to reach out to you, learn a little more about that. That sounds awesome.
No, of course. Love to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
So, Alex, what about yourself? What led you on your journey to choose oversight or concur detect by oversight?
Yeah. We in 2021 we did the pretty big overhaul. We implemented a Concur solution, moved to a new travel agency, overhauled our card program. We basically did everything all at the same time. Let's kind of towards the wind down of the pandemic. Like it's a good opportunity when folks aren't traveling to really get in here and overhaul things. Working with our consulting partners at Huron. There was a variety of providers that partnered with Concur that we were kind of looking at, and oversight came pretty highly recommended from our consulting partner. And when we started looking at the functionality and the way that oversight presents the analytics and the ability to work with us, kind of like Shelley said, that the partnership there has been really useful for us. It's not just here's our application, use it, you can't touch it, it's set in stone. That partnership with oversight to really understand the analytics and tweak things has been huge for us. And so that's really what was the selling point for us when we started talking to the team at oversight and understanding what your guys' product was all about, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, it's good to hear. Um, so so what would you say, looking back to where you were before compared to where you are, what would you say are the biggest differences? Alex, I know you mentioned number of people. That's one big difference. Any other things that come to mind? What are some of the biggest differences?
Yeah, I would definitely say for us, it's the number of people really tells that story as far as who's involved in our process. I definitely think just also being more efficient. I have a little bit more confidence now that we are identifying the right types of things that we weren't seeing before. Like Shelley had mentioned, some things around duplicate transactions was a pain for us. And there's a variety of analytics that oversight deploys that our human, sort of our human review would be very challenging to pick up. One of the trend analysis is one of my favorites in that, we might have had one accountant looking at something and then the next 2 months later have an entirely different accountant, and having that trends analysis is something that's pretty difficult to have humans replicate. So I think the efficiency in our review and just the reduction in resources tied to that review has certainly been sticking
Mm,
out to me.
hmm How about you, Shelley? What would you say some of your biggest differences how you manage risk today versus before?
It really, am I off mute? I think it really boils down to our ability to align more with our policies and be in compliance with our policies that we weren't able to do before because there were just no ways for us to catch items. And now with the ability to add in keywords, um, things like fellowships or insurance or other things that we wouldn't allow to go through expenses, we're finally able to catch that we would never have seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we only have the one person doing expense reports as it is, so it didn't do anything with our workforce, but it now makes everything we do more efficient, and we're able to find out a lot more and use that data to help training and get data back out to the departments.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a yeah, so it's not just for your internal team difference, but also providing more data out to some of the departments and things like that. It sounds
Yeah,
like them.
I've been able to give them a lot more in the forms of reporting on what's going through their departments.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I definitely kind of piggyback on that a little bit. One of the things that's sort of outside the lines of sort of compliance and fraud, waste, and abuse and monitoring, one of the biggest values that we've received in our program is just training to our community.
Mm.
So, like as an example, the in some of the insights around excessive out of pocket or some of the analysis that's done on lodging, there's some nice functionality to sort of compare the trends in lodging cost over time for our university. And so if somebody has a lodging receipt that's outside of those boundaries, it can get flagged. And most of the time, that's not sort of policy compliance issue. It's really more of a system training thing where they maybe didn't understand how to use the itemization wizard properly or things like that. So we've really seen some benefits in the training space and
Mm.
how to use our software systems and things, not so much directly in sort of the fraud, waste, and abuse compliance area. So
Yeah.
I've really appreciated that where our team spends a bit of time taking the things that we see and detect and turning it into training for folks. So that's
Nice.
certainly been a positive for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
similar to that, Alice, one of my big initiatives when we first started using it was to get spend out of the out of pocket and onto the P card. And this enabled me to now find all those people using out of pockets and kind of encourage them towards the P card use and get that more in compliance. So, we want the more P card use over the out of pocket.
Yeah, that excessive out of pocket insights is nice. Really, so same thing on our side. When we see that, it's a great opportunity to course correct some behavior.
Yeah, nice. So, yeah, so identifying risk is part of the picture. Then there's the other part of the picture, which is changing employee behavior, right? Or cardholder traveler behavior, helping them do it better, right? So you understand exactly where things are breaking down and can help them do better. And then also providing reporting and more visibility out to departments as well as the individual travelers, it sounds like. So those are some good things. Yeah. So um what would you say on your journey, right? So Alex, you hinted at this a little bit as far as the partnership, right? Being really able to work together with oversight to make sure that the system is identifying the things that you're looking for. It's not just a out of the box, one size fits all. So could you talk about that a little bit? Um,
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of my favorite parts about our journey with oversight is being able to tailor the implementation to OSU. And I don't know if Shelley had a similar experience. Sounds like it's maybe can touch on that too. We spent
yeah.
a great deal of time really understanding what the insights are doing. So like what keywords are in there, what are our MCC codes, what are the risk levels associated with each?
Hmm.
And every university is different in how they operate. Different schools have, medical colleges and different types of transactions. And so as an example for OSU, we have a vet hospital. And so out of the sort of the out of the box version is anything that has vet or veterinary on it is high risk. And we're like, well, no, we kind of need to dial that back a little because we
Yeah.
have thousands of transactions tied to our vet hospital. And so the ability to kind of go in there and refine the configuration to what to how OSU does business and the way that we perceive risk was awesome. Like it was great. That was one of my favorite parts of the implementation is kind of refining things and tweaking things. At
Yeah.
first, it was a bit overwhelming because we had no clue what we're doing. We were in a paper-based process and very review everything. Using a system like this was really outside of our wheelhouse, and so it was a bit of a learning curve. But it was exciting to understand the technology and get to kind of adapt it a little bit to how we do business.
Right, right.
I was the same, Alex. That first amount of data we got was very overwhelming because when we were doing the setup, I'm like, yes, I want to see all these things. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
And then I got those first reports through, and I was like, wait, no, that's a lot. Um,
yeah, yeah.
like we don't allow P card fees. So if there's a fee for using a card, we don't allow it. I'm like, great, we can finally catch that. So I put in the word fee, and we got 2,300 transactions that were flagged as high risk, and my processor just about had just a cap. So we had to look at those, and none of them, when we looked through them, were actually true credit card fees. But the word fee is on so many invoices and so much backup as shipping fees, banking fees. But that little word fee, if it oversight caught it everywhere. So we had to then add, fine tune it to card fee, and that got us down to like more like 20 a month, which is more manageable than the 2,000. But we had several situations like that where we had to dial down like what we were looking for or really fine tune it to catch exactly what we wanted because if you just say yes across the board, you're going to get too much data.
Yeah, that's definitely our experience. At first, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to see everything. I was like,
Yes.
I told our implementation team, turn on every single thing you possibly can. And we quickly it wasn't too long after that we really were like, okay, we need to kind of dial this back a little bit, mind what we're doing. There's
You'd be
definitely some,
amazed. Oh, sorry. You'd be
no,
amazed what
no.
names or what words are on invoices. Like we took out the word friend, thinking, okay, that's a safe one. But no, then we found a whole bunch of invoices that say, do you like our service? Please share it with a friend.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So friends gotta go.
Yeah, yeah, we have an interesting story. You mentioned the gift card process that you guys have. We had early on, we had thousands of exceptions tied to Home Depot gift cards, and we're like, man, what's going on? Like, people don't really buy a lot of Home Depot gift cards. What's this all about? And you guys maybe have seen at the bottom of the receipt it says, hey, and if you want to do this survey about your experience to win a gift card, and so. Every single Home Depot purchase got flagged for gift card exceptions, and so we were able to work with the oversight team on dialing in X number of characters at the bottom of the receipt to bypass that exception. So we were really able to get into the AI and the OCR and the machine learning to figure out like how can we optimize how the receipt is scanned to cut down on some of our false positives. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty wild there for a bit.
And just to drop a little bit of exciting news, we've got some really cool new features in the keywords, how we're going about that, and it now is able to focus in on just the purchased items and categorize them. So just a little
Nice.
bit of a tease for some really cool things that will reduce false positives, increase what's found. It's pretty exciting. So
Great.
Oh, that is wonderful. Wonderful to hear. I never really paid attention to the header and the footer of receipts so much
yeah.
as I did
Oh,
since
I
we.
know.
So yeah, that's really cool to refine that, be more efficient in the exception handling.
Yeah. Yeah. So good things coming. So what about from your process, right? So you what about the team's workload? Like how has it shifted what they were doing before or focusing on to what they're doing or focusing on now? What's changed or how would you talk to that?
So I think it's now that we're able to catch more. So what they're doing is about the same, but they're being able to catch some more things that we cared about. So instead of looking at a report with 30 lines of, $10 expenses or $20, we're only looking at the things that matter.
Hmm.
So I think because now that we're not doing the random and we're just doing through oversight, I think it evils out for us with the because we just had the one person, but now we're looking at data that matters
Hmm.
instead of wasting time looking at things that didn't in the hopes of catching one that does.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely can echo that. If we're coming from more of a paper-based process where a lot of our staff are taping receipts to paper and reviewing every line item and doing all this, doing a lot of data entry into our system, moving it to more of a world of using the tool to review what's been triggered as an exception, sort of like to Shelley's point of like what the things that have been identified that matter. We've definitely asked them to evolve a fair bit
Yeah.
way that their day to day looks. And so it is quite a bit different than some of the folks that have been around pre originally in our old program and are still here today. They've evolved quite a bit. I like to think it's they appreciate not having to tape receipts to paper anymore and get to sort of zone in on the things that are a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, that's a interesting comment. So just following up on that a little bit, one of the things that we've seen in some of our clients is I term it as like elevating the role of the auditor, right? Instead of doing a lot of manual tasks, they now have more high value actions to be taking. What are your thoughts around how the auditors view the work that they're doing, right? Do they find it more meaningful or is it less or what do you think around that regard?
I think we're definitely pushing them more to be analytic in
Hmm.
their review.
Yeah.
Not just I'm looking at this, I'm matching it. They're actually working more towards how can we fix this? Is this something we can tweak in our policy? Is this something we
Hmm.
need to give training on? I'm getting a lot more feedback on where we might need to put something on our website or get more information out there because they are catching more trends and what's going on. Like a certain department might need a specific training over another department. So I think it's giving them more of a feel for being in charge of their role versus just handling the stuff that comes through.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's kind of empowering what they're actually able to do, right? Suggesting, like you said, suggesting policy changes. Uh, that's pretty cool. And also knowing where the training needs to be focused on. Yeah. So what about you, Alex?
Yeah, I definitely think folks get to in that change in role and change in focus. I'm optimistic they get to feel a little bit more sense of reward that they're identifying things that are high value and getting to course correct things that are truly moving the needle for the departments we support.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised after 4 years into this game, you'd think we'd have our sea legs under us and we'd be absolute rock stars, but we're learning every month, honestly. Like we're
Hmm.
getting better and better at the way that we approach monitoring using oversight. And I say it that way because we're still working and learning on how we take the data and
Mm.
actually turn in the corner, like Shelley said, changing policies, like is huge,
Yeah.
right? How can we take that information to change policies?
Mm.
So we're still evolving and getting better and better every day. But I definitely
Nice.
think the our folks that are in that auditor role are definitely getting to impact departments more positively than they sort of were before, being kind of machines, paper data enter machines and entering receipts
Yeah.
and things like that. I think there's more satisfaction in that role.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And to follow up a little bit on that, I mean, I feel like AI and oversight, they continue to partner with you throughout the journey. Like I still meet with them every month and, I'm given like feedback on, hey, have you thought about tweaking this here to get more valuable feedback on it? Or and they still work with you to make sure it's a living document. I feel like it is. It's always changing, and like Nathaniel said, there's even new, better to do keywords. So I'm looking very excited about that. Um, but it's a constant thing. You can't just set it and forget it. You do need to make sure you're constantly moving forward because the stuff you're getting is going to change and the technology keeps changing.
Yeah. So a lot of people when they hear AI, there's a mixed response, right? They think uh, either, oh no, AI is coming to take my job, right? That's or this is what? Oh, it's something of the taking over the world, AI is going to control us, or those kinds of fears. And then you have the other side who is like, oh, AI is going to do everything for you. It sounds like so how would you respond, right, with how it's impacted your teams? Like I know how I think about it, but how would you describe to somebody who's got the fear, oh, AI, that's like either too scary or it's gonna do take away my job or what how would you respond to that kind of question or statement?
I would say AI is a tool, and it's only
Hmm.
as good as the people using that data. You still need the person to use the data, to analyze it, and determine what to do with it and how to move forward. It's taking all that manual effort away from you and giving you effort that you could not do on your own, and then giving you the tools to move forward with.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, said very well. I really think it's about the folks that are using that information and really about what you're doing with it. You could be running analytics and AI all over the place, unless somebody's actually doing something with the information, it isn't very valuable.
Yeah.
And it really allows us to be a little bit more efficient, not having to spend so much time on the manual tasks and really focusing on what are we doing about it. How are we actually like adding value to our departments that we
Mm.
serve? How can we use the information to help identify where people just don't know how to use the system, or and in some cases we legitimately curb fraud and abuse, things like that. So I definitely, at first we're like, what's this all about? We don't really know this very much, coming in cold.
Uh-huh.
Not really. There's not a lot of Skynet vibes going on with our implementation.
Uh-huh.
And so it's definitely like, to Shelley's point, it's like, how do you use that? How do you interpret it? And
Hmm.
then how do you apply it to your university? Because everyone's different, like,
Yeah,
and that's why definitely it's been a positive thing for us.
nice. So thinking about where you are today, right? And comparing it to where you were, what are some of the most impactful or measurable impacts that oversight AI has had on your institution, the T&E and card programs?
So I
So,
think it's affected us in a variety of ways. Like I said, I use the analytics and I have been able to push a lot more spend to our P card. It just matters on how I've wanted to use the analytics. So it's allowed me to revamp our policy a little bit. We noticed a lot of people were using more upgraded travel, which they're not allowed to, that we were never able to catch before. Again, the sales tax was a huge move for us, and we were able to really get out there in the university and get all that sales tax. I haven't looked at it yet to see what kind of those numbers are, but I know it's been a savings to our university because that's a lot of tax we're not paying anymore. So it's a lot of areas. Just that there's just so many little things. Like I said, we're only in about our year and a half, so we're still fine tuning, but it's made measurable differences to our spend.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I touched on the FTE impact. We have some pretty strong strategic goals trying to drive our research base, grow our online programming and other areas of the university. So we had a real strong desire to sort of reallocate resources to other key areas. And so being able to get more efficient in one area and redeploy folks over to other growing areas, it's certainly not a cost cutting measure, but it's really being able to shift to other strategic priorities. It's been just huge for us. It's been a
mm,
great story for us to tell, being able to, move folks over to other areas that need some more attention. Like
yeah,
Shelly mentioned, driving our card program, we have pretty aggressive card program, trying to capture as much spend on our card program as possible. And so oversight aligns with that beautifully, drawing attention to the out-of-pocket charges and allowing us to drive that for sure. some of the things that we'll be looking at in the future, going to the next level, is building dashboards and reporting for units out of data from oversight. So that's something we haven't gotten to yet, but it's on our horizon to really like, that'll be the next big impactful thing for us, is sharing the love and expanding the data that we're seeing to other key leaders at the university. So that'll be something we're looking forward to in the future.
Nice. So what advice would you give to an institution who is just starting the journey, right? So they're wanting to see, okay, what is this all about? What advice would you give?
So I would say sit down and do a really thorough review of your policy manuals and the requirements for both your travel and expense side and your P card if that flows through your travel and expenses, and really evaluate all the areas that you consider to be high risk. Do you care about upgraded travel? Do you care about sales tax? Do you care about fees? And make your dream list and then tweak it a little bit, like with the fees. Make sure you're actually looking for card fees and not transaction fees. Um, like we cared about premium travel, but again, premium, we were getting flagged for premium coffee. So I made sure it was premium, only cared about if it was travel related. So really stop and take a look at the things you want to catch, especially things you can't catch now, and make a list. And then work on that list and determine what dollar amount you want to put on that list. Do you only care about if that tax is over $100? Do you only care about that premium fee if it's on account 327? I mean, really take a look at where you care about these things and fine tune it, because you have the ability now with this system to really detail out what you want it to find and where.
Hmm,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, well said. I mean, I definitely encourage the come to the table with where your goals are, like what you're trying to, like that wish list, what are you trying to do? That's not something that we really did in our process, and I think that would have been very useful for the implementation team to understand more transparently what our end goals are, because there's some things I suspect we could have done to more directly get to those goals instead of having to sort of deploy and then tweak and to get to them.
Hmm.
I would definitely encourage also, yeah, just looking at the goals, where you're trying to go. And once you do make the decision to get into, like an implementation process, really bake in from the beginning a continual process over the first year to just stop and look at what's going on with the insights and the exceptions and things. Have an analyst, have a manager, have somebody be intentional about from the get-go saying, I want to kind of see what's going on. Because you can course correct things pretty darn fast with the team at oversight. So instead of waiting a year and then seeing okay, what's gone on, like just really commit to it from day one, because there's going to be things that you'll want to tweak, even if you really do a really nice requirements gathering and set your goals. There will definitely be things that you'll want to tweak as you see what you kind of see the power of what the system's going to find. Like we've talked, Shelly and I've talked about some of the false positives and some of the things that it can do. You'll want to evaluate that as you go on, and so just being intentional about that from the get-go, knowing that that's something you need to commit some time to, will help speed up your learning curve and drive you to be more effective quicker, is what I would say.
Oh, good, good. So we're at 43 here. I know there may be some questions. Um, I'll just check to see. We've got a few more. There's a few more things that I could ask you guys, some questions that I had. But before we go there, I just want to stop and see if there's any questions that are out there in the audience. So whether Lindsay or someone can pop on and just let me know where we're at. Do we have questions that are available, or should I? And if you're out there in the audience, and if you've got a question, I think there's a Q&A tab, and you can click on that and ask questions. And Alex and Shelley are here and ready to answer. So if we've got any, we'll take those. Otherwise, keep asking questions and give people out there who are listening an opportunity to type in questions they may have.
Yeah, Nathaniel, good reminder. We do have one, and then maybe you can continue on your discussion and I can pop in if we have
Yep.
more.
Okay, very good.
So we have someone who asked, can you speak to what expense management platforms Oversight currently integrates with off the shelf? And for other expense management platforms, are there integrations, configuration services offered?
Yeah. Okay, great question. I can take that. So we are very tightly integrated with Concur. I think Alex was talking a little bit about that. So, and Concur actually resells our product as Concur Detect by Oversight. And we're also tightly integrated with Chrome River, which is, I think, an Emburse product. And we have other um, companies that we have partial integrations with, some smaller ones like Raidu, and we certainly have worked. And there's also Oracle has a couple varieties, so their cloud-based one we have integration with, and then we've done hundreds of various smaller ones, so we can do whether it's an on-premise or a cloud-based one. Oversight really can work with virtually any expense management program. In fact, for some customers, especially around P-card, we just get a feed directly from the bank and monitor that. So you don't even have to have an expense management program to still be able to monitor that data. So good question. Hopefully that answered. If not, feel free to follow up. So are there
Yes,
any other
two,
questions before I
two
launch
quick
in?
ones. One was a
Okay.
follow-up. Do we integrate with Workday as well?
Yes. So Workday is another one. Yeah.
And then we had a question directed to Shelley. How did you go about reducing the sales tax that you paid once? You received the report showing sales tax paid.
So we put that back on the employee. If the report came through with sales tax that was over what we determined was going to be our limit, we rejected it back and told them they have to work with the vendor to get that sales tax removed either from the invoice or whatever the payment was and get it refunded back. We had a pretty good success rate with that. Um, we had a pretty nice buffer for them as it was so new that we had some good buffering there in the first part, but now we're pretty firm with it. If they cannot get it reimbursed and it is more than we allow, then they have to repay it personally because as part of their P card thing that they have signed to things here, they're going to fit within our policies and procedures. And that specifically says they're supposed to do tax exempt when they purchase something. So that has made a huge
Yeah.
impact in not getting those.
So, hey, Shelley, I just want to follow up because I know that some organizations actually run a report, so we help with that and take that to the states to get reimbursed from the states. Is that something that you've done, or it's always going back to uh, the employee and then have them go to the vendor?
I didn't know about that, so I'm going to have to look into that. But yes,
Okay.
that sounds great. I will probably start doing that as well for the ones that we haven't recouped to some other way.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. And then we did have an earlier question. I know Shelley answered in the chat, but maybe we can answer for the audience. They wanted to know, are you auditing for hotel sales tax too?
No, we opted not to audit for the hotel sales tax because of the way our tax exemption works. Some of the places we're exempt from doesn't cover lodging, and it caused some confusion. So we let that go through.
Thank you. And then it looks like our last Q&A right now, if we want to continue conversation after, was how does Oversight handle GSA lodge and meal limits? For example, if travel using grant funds, they can only expense up to the GSA limit on that fund and must use an unrestricted fund for the overage. Is the tool able to isolate and audit such?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to chime in from how we approach it, if that works for the
Yeah.
group.
Go.
Great question, Carla. I love that. Call you out. So we one of the things I like in the oversight tool is two different things. One, you can set limits on particular expense types itself. So you could say, hey, if we have a particular expense type, commercial lodging, we want to see everything that's over, let's say, $1,000. So like you can do a lot of limit configuration in there, which is really nice. We've taken advantage of. But beyond that, there's a really nice analysis that will allow you to sort of basically like put in different rates, and it will trigger an exception for review if the rate of lodging is over that amount. We use that a lot because and it ends up showing up a lot on our side when people don't properly itemize the lodging, and so they'll just put the entire bill on one night, and then it'll flag like, hey, this is $800, what's going on with that? And so we do a lot of flagging and exception handling around per diem rates and lodging rates. It's one of the things that it does pretty well, I would say. I don't know if Nathaniel or Shelley have a different experience with lodging and meals.
We rarely use per diem, so I haven't had to use that too often.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Oh,
if
sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
yeah, if whoever answered that or asked that question, if they have a follow-up, uh, feel free. Alex gave a good answer, I'd say, but if you have a follow-up, feel free to chime in. So one of the things that I always like doing well, before we get there, um, uh, I'd ask this. So, what surprised you most about the implementation process?
So I think we covered it earlier. I think for me it was just the sheer volume of data.
Hmm.
I I was not anticipating the amount of fines that it came back with. And I mean, now it's good because the fines are all very needed. They're things that are actually high risk. But that first time when I was getting that 2,000 and 3,000 fines, that was a scary week. But it's good now.
Yeah, I will say the amount of it's like be careful what you ask for. It's like if you turn everything on, you're going to get a lot of stuff, and so that volume of findings was interesting to see. But I think also just the implementation timeline. I don't know what the standard timelines are, but ours was relatively quick. It
Same.
wasn't something that took 6 months to get implemented, right? So I was appreciative of that it was something we were able to get in and deploy pretty rapidly. Now we've devoted a fair amount of time to refining and learning and whatnot, but getting to that initial point where it's like, here's your initial set of data was pretty quick, I'd say.
Same. Ours was very fast. It was really just the refinement process after it went live and determining what we cared about that took the most time.
Good. So, yeah, and you did talk both about this. It's not just turn it on, but there's configuration, critical steps, making sure you're looking at the right things. Um, so I always like to ask too about are you able to share some stories, either of things that were interesting or funny, things that maybe you weren't expecting, or some groups even have like they keep track of their kind of funny stories of things that they find people expensing. Could either of you share something about either something funny or interesting about what you found?
Well, thankfully, I haven't had any very funny purchases. It's all been pretty compliant, but
Great.
the weirdest thing we came across is that we live in an area of DC where we have a city called Upper Marlboro. So of course Marlboro was flagged for cigarettes, and it took us forever to figure out what was going on. And we're like, oh, okay. So we had to remove that from the
Yes.
list.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I think everyone will experience something like that because the power of that OCR and text recognition is pretty strong. We have, we have all kinds of random things. It gets back to the university and your operations. We just yesterday I was chatting with our travel and expense manager about some exceptions around wine tasting. We had some folks that gone on different tasting tours and food pairings, and it's picking up the high risk MCC codes and keywords. And we're like, oh my gosh, this person's over here. They spent, $150 on a wine pairing for lunch. What's going on here? And then then it allows you to kind of peel back the layers. And we actually have a wine institute on campus that does a lot of wine research and things. And so
Wow.
even which is a great institute, love it. But
Yeah.
but
Spend some time there.
you first look at it, your initial instincts like, oh my gosh, what is this all about? And then you kind of get to peel back the layers. You're like, okay, that's good, but it's not something that I would have liked. I'm appreciative that oversight flagged it because it's not usual. We wouldn't normally want to see that come through.
Yeah.
So it gets back to that story of like it points you in the right direction of the things that are valuable for you to spend your time on.
Yeah.
And then you can build in exceptions too. So like it does allow you to build in exceptions to the exception for certain areas on campus. So if we have a particular department that's constantly doing wine tasting, then we can build some carve outs for that and stuff like that. So you do get a lot of interesting use cases because it's very literal as far as the things that it's triggering on the receipts and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. One funny story that one of our clients shared with us recently was they didn't know what Tom Cruise purple was, and they didn't expect that they would learn about it on their job. Turns out that is a type of cannabis. So, uh, so there you have it. All right, I see you pop back in, Teresa. Are we about up at time here?
We've got 4 minutes.
Okay. Have there been any other questions that have popped in the meantime?
I don't see any in the Q&A at least. I know.
Okay.
It's just a comment that someone wanted to be part of the wine tastings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on over. We'll find a spot for you.
All right. Well, it's been really good. And Alex and Shelley, it sounds like the two of you wanted to connect over the sales tax stuff. So that's always an interesting category. So I really just want to thank you both, Alex and Shelley, for taking the time and sharing your insights with us. I'm always learning, and I appreciate both the time and the the thought that you put into your answers and just helping people navigate the journey. So, uh, thank you.
For having me.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Always glad to talk to the higher ed community.
All
And a
right.
big thank you from SCTEM for Nathaniel and Lindsay joining us as being our sponsors of this webinar. And big thank you to Alex and Shelley for being the university partner. It was amazing to hear all this. And please, the attendance was great today. Don't forget to join us on March 26th at 2 to 3 Eastern for our NDC reset, sponsored by Delta Airlines and Anthony Travel. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.